Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, January 14th, 2022, and today we're going to be talking about the state of Ohio. Just a year out until our midterm elections, actually less than that at this point in time, the Ohio Supreme Court strikes down a congressional map that was put forth by the Republican Party, passed and signed by Governor Mike DeWine, citing that it is not constitutional per the Ohio Constitution, following a 2018 amendment to the Constitution, finding that you cannot unreasonably favor or disfavor a political party or its incumbents through a new congressional map. And with that written into the state of Ohio, something that was overwhelmingly approved by the constituents in the state of Ohio, the Supreme Court uses this in its ruling to shoot down this brand new congressional map that the state of Ohio's Republican Party has been spending quite some time creating a perfect gerrymander, an egregious one at that, that now no longer has any type of standing over the next 10 years, as a normal type of census redrawn map would. And seeing what was written here, first of all, it was a 4-3 decision, with the Ohio Supreme Court Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor being the key vote. She is a Republican, and she could have easily taken this map and said, no, it does not violate the Ohio Constitution, just as 3 other Republicans did. Now, gerrymandering, I have definitely been completely putting it all out there. I mean, I think it is wrong on both sides, but this is definitely a much bigger issue, I would say, at least with this ruling for the GOP, than it is for the Democratic Party in terms of court cases. You see, with the maps that the Democratic Party has gerrymandered, and not to excuse it by any means, I mean, obviously it is wrong to try to carefully pick your voters to ensure, I guess, less fair representation. But the thing is that states such as Ohio and North Carolina are not going to be kind to the GOP in terms of redistricting. As for states such as Illinois, I don't know how that's going to go, and it probably won't be as bad for the Democratic Party as it will be for the GOP, just because of the court systems there, and also the maps that have been drawn in such an unfair fashion on both sides. But specifically in today's video, we're talking about the Republican gerrymander in the state of Ohio. Now, this came after just a few days ago, where the Ohio Supreme Court struck down the state's legislative maps. The House and Senate districts were completely shut down and drawn, and said that they were drawn in a gerrymandered way, that they were violating the Ohio Constitution. And with that in mind, the Republican Party was likely bracing for a very similar shutdown on the congressional map. And this could not have come at worse news for the GOP, because candidates need to announce on March 4th as to whether or not they are going to be running for a singular congressional district. And if we don't have the districts by then nobody knows what district they are going to be running in. For all we know, the 13th district could all of a sudden turn into the 4th district, and there wouldn't be anything that the candidates who announced that they were running by the deadline could do, unless the deadline was extended or there were some type of early vision maps that could have been put out there so people had a better idea. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about what this actually means for the GOP and what was said in this ruling, and how this benefits the Democratic Party pretty heavily compared to what they were expecting. Justice Michael Donnelly said in the court's opinion, meaning the majority here, saying that when the dealer stacks the deck in advance, the house usually wins. That perhaps explains how a party that generally musters no more, referring to the GOP, than 55% of the statewide popular vote is positioned to reliably win anywhere from 75% to 80% of the seats in the Ohio congressional delegation. By any rational measure, that skewed result just does not add up. So they're sending it back to Ohio lawmakers, giving them 30 days. If Republicans can't find a solution, the Republican-controlled Ohio Redistricting Commission will have 30 days to do so. But if they try to propose a map like this, they will be completely shut down. The reason why, if you take a look at what they actually went down into, they talked about individual counties that cannot be split up because they were quote-unquote unduly split up. There's much more to read within this entire opinion here, and to pretty much just summarize what we have seen, what is going to happen here is the Democratic Party is going to be provided with additional seats as a response to this court ruling. Not because the Supreme Court is giving it to them by drawing their own map, but because they will not let the Republican Party split up certain counties in an effort to dilute Democratic Party votes. And that's what was meant to happen here. You see, looking at some of these major counties, if we can find the Ohio results from the 2020 election, you will see that there are very few blue counties. But while there are very few blue counties, Joe Biden still got 45% of the vote. Despite Donald Trump winning possibly 6, 7, 8 times more counties than Joe Biden did across the state, it only resulted in an 8-point victory. And seeing these counties, what do you have? Franklin County that Joe Biden won 65% of the vote in, a huge population center. Let's remember some of these larger cities. What else do you have? Montgomery County, a larger point, Dayton, Ohio there. You have Cincinnati and Hamilton County, where you have 57% for Biden, 41% for Trump. In Lucas County, where Toledo is, you have 58% of the vote there for Joe Biden. You have Cuyahoga County. You have 67% of the vote there, with Cleveland, Ohio there. You have Summit County. These are counties that voted for Biden and have large populations that are enough to say, if they are large populations on their own, they could turn a congressional district blue. But the thing is, the Ohio Republican Party decided to gerrymander it. And I'll show you exactly what they did. Looking at the state of Ohio's map, if you remember, I showed you because it was an absolute insane gerrymander. Remind yourself that in the 2020 election, Joe Biden won 45% of the vote. Hillary Clinton won a near similar amount in the 2016 election. Obama won the state of Ohio in 2012, won it in 2008. Yet all of a sudden, this new map that's being proposed and put forth gives the Democratic Party, get this, 13% representation in a traditional year. And that's because Democrats don't even have the advantage in Ohio's 1st district or Ohio's 13th district. What they did was give the Democratic Party just two safe districts with Shontel Brown and Joyce Beatty. Beyond that, the Democratic Party has no real opportunity for pickups. They could potentially win the 1st district and the 13th district in a good year for Democrats, but in a standard year where everything is equal, Republicans will more than likely win these two races, or in a red wave year, of course, they will win those two races. And for the remaining outskirt races that are in the lean Republican column, they have a partisan lean of Republican +8, Republican +11, Republican +9. These are not really that competitive. And yet, all of this was put forth by the Ohio Republican Party, and Mike DeWine signed it, and the Republicans said that this was a fair map for the state of Ohio. Now, obviously, this is not a fair map. To give the Democratic Party 13% representation is an intentional gerrymander, and it's wrong to do. And that's why the Supreme Court in the state of Ohio said, no, this is not going to happen. And while the Republican Party does control both of the new bodies that will be drawing the brand new map, because of the way that the ruling was put down, because of the unruling splitting of counties here, what's going to happen now is that the Democratic Party will be put in a position where they will be able to win congressional districts because their counties cannot be split up, and they can be not necessarily siphoned out as much as we are seeing right now. Because let's go ahead and take a look back at our map here. Let's go ahead. I'm drawing it over, so that's why it flashed for just a second. But you see Cuyahoga County, right here with Cleveland, Ohio. You have 67% of the vote here for Joe Biden. This is just one particular example. This is not the shape of Cuyahoga County. This is not the shape of a county that represents 1 million residents in the state of Ohio. So when you see the 11th district capture in parts of Cleveland, that's how you keep the Democratic vote share there. But what you do is you take small portions right here on the outskirts of Cleveland, a solid Democratic region of the state, and you draw it in to this entire rural part of the state. And this is what the Ohio Supreme Court saw and shot down. They said this is not fair. I mean, just look at how the map was drawn. It is very clearly capturing votes from the city to ensure that the city itself does not get more representation than what it does. I mean, even splitting counties sometimes is necessary when you have larger cities, when you have a district, maybe like the 5th, that will represent less people than the 11th district does, or at least Cuyahoga County has altogether. But unduly means that you are intentionally capturing vote share in an effort to gerrymander your map. And you can see this right under Cuyahoga County, where you have Summit County. You have 151,000 votes here for Biden, and what do? You draw it into a rural area. I mean, it could not be clearer than this. And then the 13th district is only left up to being competitive because of the two combinations of Summit County and Cuyahoga County. But beyond that, I mean, it still has a Republican lean because, get this, they grab in the rural votes. And what you find in Joyce Beatty's district is that they take the Columbus region and they gerrymander it. They take it so you can siphon off this bottom portion of the Columbus area of just this individual county and throw it into the 15th, capture in all of these rural areas, and what do you have? a Republican district. Taking a look over here, I mean, you have Cincinnati, a huge city for the Democratic Party where they do very well in, and all of a sudden, the Democratic Party does not even get a seat in this area because of how the map is being drawn. It could not be clearer than this. And the thing about the old map is that the Republicans did this as well. I mean, you can literally see just how insanely gerrymandered these maps were to solidify the Democratic vote. I mean, you're taking parts of Summit, throwing it into Cuyahoga County, you're splitting up, the Cleveland area in an effort to just siphon away these votes, but the Ohio Supreme Court is saying you are not doing this anymore. And looking at the way, just looking at the history, you have a fidget spinner type congressional district here. Looking at the history in the state of Ohio, the Democratic Party historically has been disadvantaged by these gerrymandering maps, and now the Supreme Court is putting their foot down. And here's how that happened. An interesting case came up in 2012, a similar one to this one, where the Ohio Supreme Court actually upheld the map that I just showed you from the old map. This map that was 12-4, with Democrats in a bad year getting 13-3. And that's because the 13th district there with Tim Ryan was won by Tim Ryan, but it was not made to be won by a Democrat. The Supreme Court upheld it. They upheld it in a vote of 4-3. Now, keep in mind, at this point in time, the Ohio Supreme Court comprised of 1 Democrat and 6 Republicans. Think about that for a moment. You had 6 Republicans on this map and 1 Democrat, and the vote was still decided by just a singular vote. The Supreme Court Justice, this senior Chief Justice, said she was going against this and actually voted it down. And then following elections, after this position, the Chief Justice position still went to the GOP. One of the justices' seats still went to the GOP, as did another. But the third one flipped control, going from Republican to Democrat. The fourth one flipped control from when that ruling was made on that court case. You went from, again, a Republican to a Democrat. And then in the 5th case, you still had a Republican, someone who had been there for quite some time. And then in that 6th seat, it went from Republican to Democrat. In 2014, it went to the Republicans. And in 2020, despite Donald Trump winning the statewide election, Jennifer Brunner ended up winning that race. And she is now a Democrat serving on the Supreme Court. And without her, it is more than likely that the Supreme Court would have upheld the map that was proposed. But they decided now that it simply is not constitutional. And it happened because the Democratic Party won this state Supreme Court election. Those are super consequential. And looking at this new map that is that has just been shot down, this deals a major blow to the GOP because the Republican Party was looking to this as a means of taking 2 seats from the Democratic Party. They drew Tim Ryan into a district that was Republican plus 26, and they took Marcy Kaptur, someone who was previously in a district that was Democrat plus 16, and put her in a district that is Republican plus 8. They intentionally tried to draw out and unfavor incumbents and political parties as something that was prohibited in the Ohio Constitution. So seeing this, that's why this was shot down. And it has such big implications because now it is no longer a solidified map. This is no longer a map where the GOP is able to take seats from the Democrats. And actually, yesterday on the FiveThirtyEight map, what you found was that they reduced 5 highly competitive seats and added 6 Democratic-leaning seats. Now, because they aren't taking them away from the Democratic Party, Democrats are actually now up an additional seat, which only benefits them down the line. And it also sets a good precedent for when the North Carolina Supreme Court inevitably looks over these maps and potentially could shoot them down right before the midterms, because now Ohio is no longer a done deal. There is nothing left for Republicans in the state of Ohio from that old map. They cannot draw it. They cannot gerrymander it in a way that is unfair for the Democratic Party, and it looks like they are going to have to draw a map that is 10-5 in favor of the GOP. Obviously, still 67% representation is not equivalent to at most a 55% victory on the popular vote, but I am going to say that that is better in terms of representation from a complete nonpartisan standpoint, a better point of representation for both Democrats and Republicans in terms of the statewide delegation there. There is a possibility that Democrats receive a 9-6 map. That is something that could also come up too, which means the Democrats actually benefit from this, because if they had just held with the old map, and it is possible that Democrats might not have challenged this map, or it might have been upheld just out of precedent if they had stuck with the same exact map, just drawing out maybe a Republican in an effort to appease the Democratic Party, giving the Republicans a total of, what would that be, 11 seats, and the Democrats 4. I mean, that is still a gerrymander, and it still is an unfair point of representation. But because Republicans went for the gusto, and I can't even find the new map anymore because it's completely scrapped, and I refreshed my page in the time that 538 took it off because this is recent news. I mean, announced within the past hour. Looking at the Republican party's shot for the gusto, they really wanted everything and more with this new map in the state house, in the state senate, and on the congressional map. And all it took was just a ruling from the Supreme Court saying you have exactly 60 days between your two GOP-controlled groups to choose a new map, and you have to abide by this determining factor about not unruly drawing of certain counties and districts in order to favor or unfavor certain political parties or their incumbents. And as we will see in about 60 days from now, the Ohio new congressional map will more than likely benefit the Democratic Party more than it was previously, and this was all due to the fact that the Republican Party went too extreme on their gerrymandered map, and it just came back to them. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.